Hey there guys, we're taking a look at Far Cry 6 running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U. Now here you're taking a look at the built-in benchmark running at 1080p with the lowest in-game graphics and with FSR set to the performance preset. This is really running with a very low internal resolution, and FSR is really being pushed to its limit here, where it can look pretty rough in a lot of circumstances, but you are getting the best possible performance that you can here at 1080p and the stock TDP. Overall, the numbers for the built-in benchmark don't look too bad, but it's not going to be anything remarkable, specifically because of the fact that the average is really just barely at 40. It is going to feel noticeably smoother than just a 30 FPS cap, but not by a significant margin or anything like that. It's just a nice improvement above that, but nothing remarkable. Really, it's when we drop the resolution down to 720p that things improve, but now what we're doing is we're running at 720p with the lowest in-game graphics settings, but FSR is still set to the lowest performance setting. So what we're seeing here now then is an internal resolution that is pretty much minuscule, and it takes all of this for us to be able to essentially barely get something that is close to a 60 FPS average, with 1% lows that are admittedly very solid. But considering what we have to do to the resolution to essentially get this level of performance, this is pretty rough, though at least FSR allows this to happen. But let's take a look at what happens when we actually raise the TDP from the stock 15 watts all the way to the balance preset of 25 watts. Now at the balance preset, we do see a improvement in the 1080p experience, though not by a significant margin. At least the 1% lows are staying above 30, and we are getting a lot closer to a 50 FPS average, though it's really just going to be sticking around the mid 40s throughout most of the experience here. It is overall better, but it's nothing remarkable, but 1080p is now doable, at least going by the benchmark here. And again, FSR is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here because it is still in the performance preset at 1080p, so we are running at a relatively low resolution already here. But of course, since we already tested 720p with the stock TDP, we'll look at what 720p does with the 25 watt TDP. And as you can see, 25 watts gives us some pretty decent performance at 720p, though again FSR is doing a lot of heavy lifting here and the image is pretty rough to look at, though the 1% lows that we're getting here are decent enough with averages that are now comfortably above 60. But really overall, it's not an amazing experience, and again you have to compromise a lot in terms of resolution to try to get this actual playable levels of performance. If you were on, say, a 7-inch screen that was just 720p resolution, this would be pretty awesome, but considering that we're on a 15-inch 1080p display, it does get pretty rough to look at sometimes, though at least it is playable. And if you really want to play this game, especially if you're playing with friends, it is at least doable here, which is more than you can say for a vast majority of cheap laptops. Now, if we go with the performance preset at 1080p, you can see here that we are still running into the same overall issues with 1% lows and averages, so not much of an uplift here. And we are also starting to get into some higher temperatures, though nothing too dangerous. Overall, though, I think over extended periods of gaming, it will start to get into the 80 degrees, and it's just temperature that I'm personally not comfortable gaming at. It's your personal decision on how you want to run your system, but I just think that going into these higher temperatures for prolonged periods of time is just going to degrade your hardware, and it's really not going to be necessary for such a minimal gain in terms of performance. At least in terms of 1080p, we can of course look at 720p and see if there are any noticeable gains there and maybe an improvement in temperatures. Now, if we look at what we're getting here with the 30 watt TDP at 720p, the 1% lows are looking pretty solid and the averages are looking also pretty good, but the temperatures that we're getting are starting to get into dangerous territory, at least for me personally, so I would not comfortably run the hardware like this. It is certainly a nice improvement in terms of performance, but it's not significant, and I don't think it's worthwhile to run at these high temperatures. If you have a system that actually lets you run your hardware at these higher TDPs, then by all means go for it. You are going to get the smoothest experience experience. If you just pay attention to the frame times, you'll see that overall what happens is the higher the TDP is, the smoother the frame times will be. But if we jump into the game and look at it actually running at 1080p with the 30-watt TDP and the lowest in-game graphics, you can see that overall the experience that we're getting is passable enough at 1080p because of the fact that the 1% lows are at least at 30 FPS, though it would be nicer if they were higher than that. It is at least at a level that I think is going to be more than doable for a lot of people. And again, this is with FSR set to the performance preset, and I have to preface that because I know a lot of people out there do not like what FSR looks like, but overall I think that it is a worthy sacrifice just to be able to actually make these AAA games playable on systems like this. Of course, dropping down to 720p does net us a overall improvement in the gameplay, but again, FSR is doing a lot here and we're really dropping down to some very low resolutions. So I can totally understand if this improvement in performance is not worthwhile the image quality that you are getting out of this. At that point, it's really just up to your personal choice. But anyways, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, be sure to subscribe, and if you're interested in picking up some cheap games, check out the G2A affiliate link down below to help support the channel and get yourself some pretty cheap games out there. But anyways, I will see you guys next time.